So I reviewed the initially I missed them, but I did see the templates that you sent over. That was helpful. And so we're kind of in a weird situation because since we're locked in with ZoomInfo, like ideally after we chatted with you and we learned more about Clay, we would want to find our contacts through um we would want to find our contacts that way through Clay, like pulling in emails. I see Mike joined too. But now, we're in a position where since we have ZoomInfo, we're probably going to pull our emails, from there and then enrich in ZoomInfo, or pull emails through Clay and then enrich in ZoomInfo. Is that right, Mike?
Uh, y- Yeah.
Just acquiring contacts. So then having so the flow will be a little different, but there were a lot of columns in your shared templates that I had some questions on and want to see if you could talk through them. So the first one that we've been trying to figure out is what's the best way to pool an ESP. So I saw that there's kind of like an app that's a third party service built within, but then we were looking at the API route, which was a little
Yeah.
tricky, but I think I'm close to figuring it out. I want to see what you do for that because I noticed I didn't see anything. I saw like one column here that pulled in million verifier that had like a little 200 symbol. So I wanted to see if that was it or if you have another way.
Yeah. Do you want to pull those tables up in Clay so I can talk you
Yeah.
through 'em? And then on your Zoom info, before we dive too deep in the other one, I mean, do you have because I mean, obviously, you can enrich a company and a contact in Clay calling Zoom info, right?
We don't have the
Uh,
API,
you don't have the API.
and
Okay,
we
that's what
they're
was
going to charge us 18,000. For right now. We want to. How do we make a massive sheet in Clay, export it, and then upload it into ZoomInfo, knowing that all the things that we're exporting out are Gmail.
Got it. Okay. So go ahead and create a table using this template if you haven't already.
Okay. It looks like I'm getting some kind of error here, but
Weird. Yeah.
now I gotta log in. I think I just go through Google.
Okay. Yeah, you got it up though. Okay, perfect. So let's kind of talk through the structure of this, and then we'll we'll audit. We'll make some changes here, right? So um, there's a lot of ways we can import leads, but we're going to assume you're going to export, Mike, you said from CSV and out. Like, tell me. I guess I want to be able to adjust accordingly. So,
Whatever would allow us to upload into ZoomInfo. Juan, you can speak to them.
and then you're going to use Zoom Info to find the email.
Yeah,
Correct.
so we're going to export the emails from ZoomInfo and then enrich them using Clay.
Okay. Are you going to start in Zoom Info, where you're
No,
going
no,
to do
no.
all your filtering?
Juan.
That's where
No.
I'm
We
confused.
start in Clay. We figure out
Start and
what's
Clay, pull the
Gmail.
companies and enrich using ZoomInfo. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're the only thing you're using info is to get the email. The only reason we're doing that is because we happen to already pay for the year to I think we have 600,000 credits. So I want to exhaust all of those first before I start
Yes,
using the
we're
email
finding the
waterfall.
companies first via Clay and kind of
Yeah.
the decision makers as well.
Okay, got it. So let's just do it. Let's do it. Use real data and do a sample, and then we'll just adjust this table accordingly. Let me look something here. Would it be easier for you to give me access to this table and to do it for you, or do you want me to talk you through doing it all? What's easier?
Sure. I learned how to do that the other day. So share as a template.
No, I mean like the actual table in the environment. Are we at that point where you guys want to share this environment and have me work in there with you, or would you rather me just tell you over the shoulder how to make the changes?
Oh,
And
sure. I can share that. So is that in the settings here?
Yeah, if you go to settings,
Okay, let me check this out. Settings.
then you just have to give me access.
Is that connections or team?
Team.
Okay. And then
And
the
it's
best email?
Josh at contentmarketingmedia.io.
Okay.
I think it'll just save you a lot of time, Juan, instead of me telling you
Yeah.
how to do
Yeah,
all that.
we have very little in our clay at this point. It's really just test tables and
It's loading me in. Okay. So let me share the screen here. And then are you on the 350 plan? So you have the API access and everything?
yes.
Okay. And then this is the table that you just created, right? That I just created.
Correct.
Okay. So a couple things in here, right? Like you're not going to find the emails. So I'm going to take these out real quick because they're just a distraction. Because we're gonna pull the leads, and then you're gonna go verify them from there. So let me see what else is in here.
And we also have never bounce credits through ZoomInfo, which is something I was going to ask you about. We're still getting I don't know, maybe less than 3% bounces, but we are still getting them. And I know you mentioned trying to stay
Yeah,
below
I
1%.
mean it's a tactical choice, right? I use Million Verifier and BounceBan for two reasons. Number one, our bounce rate is about 0.5% in aggregate across all clients. So it's what do you want? What sacrifices do you want to make to get 0.5% versus 3%? If that makes sense.
Right.
And then the second component is BounceBan is what verifies catch-alls. I don't know Never Bounce well enough to know if their output includes catch-alls or not. We could probably test it in Clay, but you're going to pick up probably
Juan,
30.
I would be willing. If there's like a waterfall that we can use, I'd be willing to pay to get the bounce rate low. It
It's
Okay.
seems
worth
like I mean, if it as long as it's within somewhat of reason, I feel like the value is there, dude.
by
Okay.
far. I
Because if you
empirically
don't,
agree.
if you fuck around on that, then you wipe out your whole system. What did you gain?
Yeah.
So you're going to need, and we can have this as a takeaway, but you're going to need to go to Million Verifier and sign up. And you're going to need to go to BounceBan and sign up. It is
Juan, you just want to do
ridiculous.
that right now so we can go through this other work session?
Yeah,
Well,
let me just.
I'm writing them down to go through with that, but
This is Million Verifier. Juan, I'll put it in the chat. We'll make it easy.
okay.
Uh,
Because I'm just assuming there will be some setup there, so I'm making a note to do it right after.
yeah, and then you're going to need the API keys. So once you can just start off with the cheapest plan on both, just so you can get familiar with it. It's basically like $37 for 10,000 on Million Verifier, $34 for 10,000 on BounceBan. You're going to use BounceBan a lot less than you'll use Million Verifier because you're only verifying catch-alls with BounceBan. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But this, if you notice, I'm not sending you affiliate links. I don't do that. So just so you know, this is really that's weird that it put bounce in the link, but this is what works, right? I've done it 5 million times. So
Question on that, so when you say it verifies the catch-all, so Never Bounce provides like through ZoomInfo provides like a list of emails that will basically accept anything, right? That's what you mean? Is that all it provides?
yeah, let me just show you like a real campaign. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Let me I'll just do the one I built last night.
It actually spits it out as like verified, invalid, unknown, and then unverifiable is what Never Bounce provides.
Yeah, so part of it is you'd have to dive into what those actually mean because
Right.
they're different for every single provider. This is the flow we're going to build, right? And this is what you're asking about earlier, where it's like ESP check, and this is free, but we're going to build this ESP check in, and that way you're going to be able to filter out everything that's not. All you're going to do is want to exclude outlet. The rest of these are fine, right? Now I
Mhm.
already have it filtered, so but you're going to exclude all the outlooks, and then we're going to run this process, and this is what you saw in that table, where a million verifiers is going to pass it for either okay, unknown, or catch-all. The unknowns, which are the good news is they're few and far between. They're not that many. Those are done. If it's unknown, there's no point in running BounceBan. But the okays are good to send to. All these catch-alls, see all these catch-alls?
Mhm.
This is why you pay for BounceBan, because the vast majority of these catch-alls are going to verify as deliverable. Occasionally they don't. See, there's one right there that says deliverable.
Mhm.
But most verification tools will spit out these catch-alls and you'll never email to them. They'll just exclude them in one of those categories you probably just described.
Right. So
This
do you email
process,
catch-alls
oh
and
yeah,
then
yeah. So we have a table that we've built here that says if million verifier okay, you're done. It comes over here as verified. If catch-all, run through BounceBan, and if it comes back deliverable, then it comes over here. And this process gives me more emails than most people and also gives me a 0.5% bounce rate. And
oh,
it's
nice.
dirt cheap compared to side by side to any of these other verifiers. And this, I will tell you, this is probably what the top 10 agencies in the world all use. It's just for whatever reason, they're not built in natively to Clay. They're both directly via API.
Okay, and that's also okay, and the ESP is right through the Clayagent, right? Just kind of uploading the MX tool.
Yeah, so all this is, and you're going to need to sign up. This account's actually free, but you need to sign up for a tool called Bison, this or Sequencer Email Guard right here.
Email guard, okay.
Yeah, and if you sign up for a free account, you'll get an API key like I have here, and you'll be able to run unlimited email ESP verifications before you ever get to Inst.
All right, that was our missing piece. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put this, like, I'm not going to make you do all this work. I'm going to put this in the Clay table that I give you.
Okay.
So let me switch instances here. Let me close some of these out.
And is the 200, it seems to me it's just like when Clay can't read something. Is that right?
No, the 200 is just an API response
Okay.
saying that the 200 is actually a positive response.
Okay.
All right, so let's fix that for you real quick. For now, I'm just going to give you, so we have live tables. Just do me a favor and like don't run this 10,000 times, but I'm going to put my API keys in here so you can actually have something you can work with after this call. That makes sense? But
Okay.
when you sign up for Million Verifier, just go in and replace them for me, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is the part that I was trying to figure out on my own. And I went, so you're saying the email guard tool, that is free then.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they do a whole lot of stuff around deliverability. So it might be worth looking into, but I don't think we have an email column in here. That's why it's not working. Yeah, they do a whole bunch of stuff related to deliverability. So like IP and domain checking and stuff. So it's worth exploring. It'll help you with deliverability, but you can use that ESP checker for free. You just need to sign up and then get an API key.
Cool.
All right. Let's do this. Email. And then come up here. So that, just keep in mind that email column, you're going to need to feed that in from ZoomInfo, right? Okay, so that works. I'll take this off for now. And then BounceBan, let me give you that one. And then we'll test this real quick. Or move on. And then I'm going to put the ESP checker in there for you too. All right, so if we put so that's good. It worked. And then this should only run if this, so what you're seeing down here on BounceBan, it's conditional. One, it only runs, in other words, it only goes out to spend money if the output of the previous column is catch-all, because that's the only time it's needed, right? But my email verified, right? So what we're gonna put here, you're not gonna need this either. This table got quite convoluted, but it's okay. I'm gonna clean it up for you.
And a lot of those extra like that. Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Okay. The confidence is how does that? What's in that column?
You said in here.
Confidence column.
Where did you see that? I'm missing.
Next to
here.
There, yeah.
Oh yeah, because what I had in this table, and it's just something to keep in mind. We could do. There was a formula that went out and actually found emails based off doing a ClayGent search. So it's just another
confidence.
Yeah, the confidence was actually how confident was it that it was actually a good email? It still went through verification. If that makes sense.
Gotcha.
But I was able to kind of build in a combination of like web searching and stuff to find emails. So there's some pretty crazy stuff you can actually do. But it's, you really don't need it because you're going to be using ZoomInfo.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to put this as your verified email. And actually, let's delete that and let's give you a merge column. And so this is going to say and verifier. So we just do result. Equals okay. Then email. So I'm telling this formula that if the result is okay, then put it into this column and see how it checks that it's okay. And then I'm also having it look at the BounceBan column, and I'm going to tell it if result 4, which is the output of the BounceBan column, is equal to deliverable, which is what it would be if it was legitimate. Then I'm going to say put the email column. So all I'm doing is telling it through a formula generator, which there's no output on that one yet, but it's going to look at these two columns, the million verifier and BounceBan, and save the final result if either email is verified. So that way you have a list, and you see how it added that email there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're only going to get in this column verified emails, because not everyone will verify, right? So like, and we'll give you an example. So let's just say I have nobody named Juan at my company. So we'll put Juan at contentmarketingmedia.io, and then we're going to try to verify it. It's probably going to come back invalid. Yeah. Because so nothing, you see how nothing got added to that column because it didn't pass either test. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So why this is important for you, Juan, is when you go out to ZoomInfo, you're going to have, and we'll remove this for now. Let's just say that it's very basic. You had a list like this: first name, last name, full name, etc. Right? And you go out to ZoomInfo with this data. You come back with an email. Okay, you're going to import these emails here, and then all of this is going to run million verifier first, then BounceBan to check any catch-alls. But this column right here is the only one you care about because these are the only emails that have passed that level of verification. And if you do that, then these emails, if you use only these emails right here to add campaigns to instantly, your bounce rate will be 0.5% on average.
Nice. Okay.
All right. So next phase, let's do ESP checker. All right. So I'm going to put that here behind the email because obviously you're going to need the email to do the ESP check, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's also via API. And then I'm going to grab it from this campaign here. And then copy it. Again, you can just use mine until you get your own. Nothing's going to change on this except the API key. That makes sense. Well,
It does. Yeah. We'll get that switched out pretty quickly, but it is helpful just to see.
well, I think you can probably use this as much as you want because it's free anyway.
How does that? I know the email guard is free, but the BounceBan and million verifier, I know you have with you having a ton of clients. What do you end up paying?
BounceBan, I pay about 400 a month. Million verifier, probably about 600 every 2 months because I buy in big bulks, like a million at a time. And
Okay.
then million verifier is cool because it's like they give you like rewards if you buy like a subscription that renews every month. And BounceBan, it's about every couple weeks. You know, it renews at like 250, and that's I think I do 50,000 at a time for BounceBan. That's not horrible. I mean, we're talking running over a million easily a month through it. So I don't think you're
Right.
going to run into that kind. Well, you may at some point get to that kind of volume. But, let's see. So I just need content type. And the nice thing, have you done any API work in Clay? Well,
This ESP work that we were setting up was the first attempt, and I kept getting errors, but now I see why the email guard seems like that'll be the game.
yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. Like the secret to Clay, honestly, is anything you can connect via API, connect via API because it's just it's exponentially cheaper. And I'm not an expert at writing APIs. It's just don't be afraid to, like, I have GPT desktop, Claude, I'll just take a screenshot of it and like help me fix this, like
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I was kind of using ChatGPT to solve it piece by piece, and I got really close, but I think first it provided me like a free tool that was no longer active, and then I was just running into that. So
Yeah, if you don't have GPT desktop, it's super awesome because you can literally like highlight the screen while you're in there, and um, it makes it so much easier because it surprisingly it's very familiar with Clay. It's well
Oh, okay.
trained on Clay. Um, all right, so we're gonna rename this. We'll just call this ESP check, and it's now built in there. And so we'll add the output to it, and you don't need the email because you already have it, but you do need the host. So obviously I
Nice.
put the same domain in there, but and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to stack these, right? So the critical thing is everything, every row, every column can be dependent on the previous row. So I would come into Million Verifier and say down here with this run if, which is probably one of the most powerful functions in Clay, and you can do
Hmm.
it, you know, with the AI formulas that you say, uh, email host is not Outlook. And it's going to tell you, yes, the column will run because the email host is Google. It's kind of like reverse logic. You want it to run if email host is not out. And it
Okay.
tested it and it says it's correct. So now even what's important is when you turn these auto update buttons on, this is all going to happen automatically, right? You
Right.
add your ZoomInfo emails here, then it's going to do an ESP check, and then if it's not Outlook, it's going to do Million Verifier. So this is how you build these tables correctly, because otherwise, if you're not paying attention, if you don't do these conditional runs and you don't have your auto updates set correctly, you could do like 10,000 and half of them are Outlook and you just wasted money on Million Verifier and BounceBan when you're never going to send to them.
Got it. So auto update critical.
Yeah. And I should do this now for sake of consistency. See this little circle down here? The little
Mhm.
circle thing? I always turn that off when I'm building. That way I don't have to worry about it auto updating.
Okay, so turn it off so it's not just running, just like
Yeah, if you turn this off, it doesn't matter what these individual settings are right here, like auto update on, because this overrides the whole table. But just be
okay.
careful because once you click and turn this back on, now we don't have anything in there. But and it'll even warn you, like you're about to turn the table on, now I can auto update. So just when you're building, especially if you have like stuff that costs money, then
Credit.
keep it up, keep it off. Yeah, because that way you don't have to worry about accidentally spending money. Or and the same applies with clay credits. It'll spend your clay credits. But the beauty about this table that we have so far is we will not have spent a single clay credit. This is all via API.
Nice.
So let's talk about how to quickly get some real data in here.
Yeah.
So do you remember on that first call we talked about actions
Yes.
and
And I did a run through of that as well last week.
good. Okay. So let's find some people. Hopefully Clay will work properly. Let's see who Clay
My
is.
head was spinning with how many industries they have. Are those populated from LinkedIn? Like to exclude
Yeah.
industries and whatnot?
Yeah, they're entirely from LinkedIn.
Okay.
So the simplest thing is because we already had the import profiles in the table here, is see this little plus sign?
Hmm.
Just click it. It'll bring up the box. Now, last time I showed you how to find companies first and find people. You remember that?
Yes.
There was a reason for that. Because when you just do this, you can search both. So, in other words, you have company attributes are in this find people. The problem is if you don't do find companies and find people, you don't get the company data from LinkedIn. So
Okay.
so ideally what you would want to do, I'm going to show you both ways, but ideally what you'd want to do is come out of this table and build a new table. And actually, let's do it in a workbook. That'll be easier. I like workbooks. Um, but do you see how I created a new one and then find companies as the option?
Right. Yeah.
you want to do it this way first because there's demographic data in the company information, like the company LinkedIn profile, employee count, I believe, that won't, if you just search find people, you won't get that data in there. So what Clay
Okay.
does is when you build a company list first, it then writes that company table data to your people list. But if you just pull it from a table, like by doing only people, you don't get that company data. I know I've said the same thing three different ways, but
No, I'm
that's
following.
that's kind of why I showed you. But you still can accomplish the same thing. So even though we have that, I'm gonna do a sample. Like let's just do internet, and then we'll do 50 to 100 companies. We'll do United States, and then let's just limit it to 50 people. But keep in mind, you
I
can
also was
see,
able to do, after you shared it with us, kind of like a just testing out the suppression list, and that seemed to work well. The excluding companies.
yeah, and that's the nice thing about these is that you can suppress them from other tables, right? Like you see right here,
Mhm.
like you were talking about, you can just pick another table and say, don't pull anybody on this list. And you can even do lookalikes, which is kind of cool. I don't think it's as good as like Ocean and Panda Match, but it's a cool little feature. And what I'm gonna do is, so here's this basic list, and this is what I was talking about, like the company description and stuff. You won't get all this data if you just pull it directly from people. So I'm
Right.
gonna,
You would have to build that, right? Like build a column that does that.
yeah, and you have to pay. The beauty about doing this way is you're not paying for anything. If you want the
Gotcha.
fully enriched profile, you could pay a credit per row and all this other additional data, but you don't have to. So like I'm going to leave it where it can even tells you continue for free. So it's going to build this table. And it's just telling me I only chose 50, right? So there's that table. And then what we did last time is we said we come to actions and we find people at these companies. So that's how we drill down to people. And what Clay is doing, if you notice, is taking that previous table and importing it as the companies.
Mhm. And
You
it
see
adds
that
them as
there?
a separate tab.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want you to be like, I want you to be able to see how to do it both ways because if you're starting from scratch, like it's just
Mhm.
as easy, even if like Clay sometimes gets wonky, right? It doesn't talk to another table or whatever. Just remember, like you could always just as easily, export it and re-import it into your new table. That makes sense. Just like you're going to do with ZoomInfo.
Right.
So I will tell you, like I've tried to do this sometimes 10,000 rows at a time. It'll wonk out or error out or whatever. So I'm just like, well, I still got it. Like it's always in a table. I could just easily anytime just export it to CSV and put it wherever I want. Right. So that's
Okay.
part of it should work well most of the time, but like I'm telling you, I don't know, probably 100 tables that are 50,000 rows each, where it gets really goofy sometimes because it's too much data trying to process
Okay.
all at the same time. But let's go back to your table. I just want to make sure you were clear on that distinction because it's important to know that, right? So I'm going to come here. Let's import. Let's pick some same company attributes, and I'll just show you the difference here. We'll do internet technology like we did last time, and then we could do job title. Let's just do chief marketing officer, everybody's favorite job title. And then I could exclude, right? There's the exclusion we talked about. We'll just do 50 people. Did I do United States? Let's do United States. I mean, what I like about this, honestly, is you're basically getting access to pretty much all LinkedIn's database, right? That's
Right.
what this is.
I couldn't believe it was free. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, they don't really advertise it. I mean, what they do is they limit you to like I think it's 5,000 if you're on like the $99 plan, but if you're on the 350 a month plan, which you have to be to do API calls,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to at least be able to do 25,000. And most of my clients, I'm on the 800 because I need the CRM integrations. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get 50,000 rows, which is the limit of any clay table. It's 50,000 rows. So I did a basic search like before. We're going to import it to the current table. And see, these are the wonkiness. Like, why did it put 2 blank rows? But we'll delete that. The other thing too that's relatively new, and I would tell you it's pretty cool, is you can also schedule this stuff now. So if you you label this as like, this is my SaaS list, all the criteria, which are right here in front of you, are the way you want them, then you could easily schedule this to run this at whatever interval you want, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So you could, we could have our key industries we want data on each month and just
Yeah.
pull that in.
And anytime, like you see how I've run this table, I don't know why it's got 2 blank rows, so I'm going to delete them. But you see how it has the 50 rows we put in? You just come into this is the import option here, and you go to sources
Mm-hmm.
and click here, and it's going to give you the parameters. So those are always there. And it's also the same place you can come and update a schedule. So if you wanted to update every day, and you can even come in here, and I got to find it. Well, you can look at a graph of your data if you want to be geeky like me and see all the things that happen. But there's this option down here, Juan, where it says dedupe. You can turn that on and turn on automatic deduplication. And you just tell it what column to use to dedupe from, like LinkedIn profile. You never want 2 people with the same LinkedIn profile. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
way to dedupe. And that way, if you're auto updating it, it doesn't accidentally add the same person. That makes sense.
Right. Now, do you utilize that auto update, or do you find that workflow is a little bit like, I imagine you run into some issues there, right?
Seldom do I use it, but we have a couple of scheduled workflows that we run for clients where we do use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And it's usually to go fetch data. Like if I have an
Right.
API call to go fetch data, let's just say from website visitors from our B2B, for example, then I'll
Mhm.
schedule it to run. You could also run it, via webhook in real time, but webhooks, you don't get to really choose the data you get, but with API calls, you do. So sometimes I have a couple workflows where I'll just schedule it going out and getting the data.
Cool. New
So
hire.
this is, say again.
Oh, I was just thinking like new hires or something like that. It could be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, in play around in Clay, there's all kinds of, so see right here, monitor for job
Oh,
changes,
okay.
monitor for promotions. Those are 2 tables I would absolutely schedule because, or you could just have them run. I think when you build them, you can actually let them run automatically and they'll just capture that. But those are 2 great signals they've already built into Clay for people where you can monitor, you just define the criteria and it'll constantly run and monitor, and you could add them to campaigns. You could do whatever you want with it. That's true signal based data, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you a crash course here again. So this is the 50 we pulled in. These are clearly all, I think we chose technology, internet. But if you notice, this is the columns that came from that. Every time when you have these columns, if you click into the header column here, you can actually see if there's any other data that's not in the table. Like it looks like I put everything in the table. But what you notice, because we pulled just people and not companies, there's no
Hey,
company.
hey, one second. Hey, Juan, I'm gonna hop off.
Okay.
Um, so basically, the remainder of this, the purpose of this call, you're still trying to get to the point where you export basically a list of ESPs out of, or a list of companies that are verified Google out to be enriched in ZoomInfo. So that's where we're headed.
And we're there, honestly, Mike.
Okay,
Like
cool.
we now got to where we got it. You would upload this to ZoomInfo, come back with these emails, and then you would
Continue you
you
could
would end up with
continue.
verified emails. Yeah. And
Got it.
then
Got it.
from there
Okay.
it's adding more. Yeah.
All right. I'll let you guys keep going. We're excited. We'll probably be back in touch soon, Josh.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter like how you can get here from people, you can go companies, people, like we talked about a few minutes ago. You could, for now on, you could literally duplicate this table 1,000 times and come in and just do more searches and more attributes and more company types. You see what I'm saying? The only
Yeah.
difference is, do you want more company data? Like, do you need the company's LinkedIn profile? I don't think you do for ZoomInfo. I mean, you now have first name, last name, job title, location, their domain. Every email verifier and finder I know of only uses domain, first name, last name, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But if you wanted company data in your table, then pull company, then pull people and put it into this table. That makes sense.
Yeah,
But
so you're saying we should be fine with the find people. I guess the only thing I was thinking was that once we get into the Octave flow of like the personalization, like the company description details,
still don't need the company LinkedIn
still okay.
profile. No. And when
Because
we get there, I'm gonna
first
show you
taken.
some pretty amazing stuff you're gonna be able to do. But
Oh no.
you
Okay.
only need the individual's LinkedIn profile. And the nice thing is everything you've done it to this point, Juan, you have not paid a penny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why I want you to, because you're gonna pay pennies when you start to use Octave, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna label this table for you, so you know. Ready for export to Zoom. Because here, what you would do is you're going to come in, you would export this, right? I need you, are you sure though? I know you guys don't have API access, but are you sure that have you tried logging into your Zoom account info here and making
Yeah,
sure that you,
we had a call with their like director and we were trying hard to like get that without, but you know, they want us to pay more and we don't want to spend more, so
well, but this is not true API access. It's Clay's
mm,
built-in enrichment. Like, but you don't need your API key to do this. You just have to log into your account. So what you want to make sure, because I can tell you from like the way Apollo works,
mhm.
is that this is not considered API access in Apollo. This is just, it debits credits just like it would if you were in the platform itself.
Okay.
So I would just tell you this, like if it were me, do you see, I
Try to
have it
log
up on
in.
the screen. I would just try to log in and run
Okay.
a few and then check the credit usage within your account itself and make sure, because they usually protect API costs because they know if you're asking for the API key, you're going to run it 10,000, 500,000 times. So these companies like ZoomInfo, Apollo, they usually have different plans for APIs, right? But a lot of these tools like Salesforce and HubSpot and even ZoomInfo, it's very possible you might be able to use this and you're using normal credits. You're just doing it more efficiently.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot. That'd be huge.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't have to export, right?
Mhm.
You would get the information here because you can tell from this enriched contact, it's asking for the first name, last name, company name, which you're feeding it. It doesn't require the email address because you want it to come back and give you the email address. I wonder though, let's see. I can't remember. I'm gonna try mine.
Yeah, because we hadn't looked in here. We had just we went to our settings appeared limited, and then, you know, we had a separate combo going with them, but that would make sense.
I haven't logged in my thing in a while. So let's see if mine works. And we have a few minutes, so why not?
One thing while I'm waiting is the company name normalization. I noticed you have that in there. Do you have to do like a second cleanup of that?
Yeah, easy peasy. Um, yeah, I think I used all my credits. It gave me a free account to consult them, so they don't give me any real volume. Yeah, so let's get back to your table. So play around with this. I mean, it's easy
Yeah, I'll
setup.
check it
If it
out.
works, it works. If not, if not. But yeah. So normalizers is what those are called, one.
Mm,
And so looks like we don't actually have a company name column in here. Which you'll get in ZoomInfo, but let's add one for sake of so
I was able to do it in another table fine, but I noticed, like, it had, like, blanket rules that were a little nuanced, like removing CO, and then it would mess up the company name a little bit, or it wasn't smart enough to, like, remove, a Johnson& and Johnson company, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So stuff like that. I was just wondering if you encountered that.
Yeah, it is a little nuanced. I think it's still better than not using it at all. So I'll use the normalizers, right? So this is there's one that's more of a ClayGent one, and this one is really, really good, but you're paying a credit every time you use it. So it's using
Gotcha.
AI to do it. The other one is this one right here, and I still don't think it's bad. Like, if I, you just don't
Right.
have a lot of options. All you can do is affect the case, and your only choice is like the normalized name. Now,
Yeah, so you still have to do, like, some manual cleanup, I noticed.
yeah, so like we'll run it on mine. It should remove the LLC, which it did. See, so it's not bad, right? It does the basic stuff. The other thing you can do, and this is, do you guys have an open AI key?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you. I'm going to switch out of your instance. I'll leave that in there, but I'm going to switch out of yours for a minute because everything's relative to the cost, right? So let me give you an example.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess I could see us doing that.
Yeah, because look, if let me just pull up one here. The trick about using GPT-4 Mini is just using it at ridiculous amounts of uh, usage for ridiculously cheap, right? So like let's
Mhm.
use AI, right? And instead of using the built-in clays, and we don't need web research for this, we're just going to use GPT-4 Mini, and then we're going to use our API key, right? So, and are you familiar with the meta prompter?
Is that just the assistance for it?
Yeah, this help me. They call it the mega
Yeah,
prompter. I said meta
okay.
prompter, but so you don't have to write prompts anymore, and just say, look at the company name and return a clean. They should call it the mega prompter. That's a cooler name than help me.
Yeah.
But it writes the
Yeah,
prompt
I
for you.
loved I love doing it in ChatGPT because I can set rules like, "Hey, don't do this, do that," and ultimately, I would get, like, a little window that helps, but then I noticed, like, when I'm actually using ChatGPT itself, there's just so many company names or something, but in a clay table, I could see that being really useful, like
Yeah, because this is written to write prompts for Clay. Because like it's telling it like it's even telling you like here's the model you should use for this. The nice thing it does the JSON for you, so it makes the outputs much cleaner. And I don't know why I didn't accept that prompt. Should have accepted it. Do it again, and it'll drop this prompt in here. But I think this is something I want you to understand for anything, because something in Clay is not working because it's not. It's supposed to paste the prompt right here, but I'm just going to type one review. Uh,
Yeah, I played with the meta prompter a bit before I knew what it was called, but, it definitely for someone who doesn't have a strong background in, like, the prompting side, it was very helpful for just kinda learning to just learning Clay initially, like, "Hey, here's" and then the
yeah,
concept of, like, it not being able to read, um, column like, not being able to read, like, a URL, you have to transfer things into text format sometimes, and then, calling on a column's name and just, like, those basics.
yeah, exactly. Well, and the concept I want you to take away here is that for the cost of GPT to do this kind of stuff, like it's so much easier to just absorb the cost, right? So I just did four. I basically wrote a bullshit prompt, but it was good enough for to prove the point. You see what the cost of it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I could do 10,000 of these for 3 cents, probably all up is what it would cost if I'm doing the math
Wow,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So way cheaper
So
to run it through chat.
yeah, why not? And more as these models get more effective and cheaper, this is such a powerful tool. Uh, and I'll just give you like a quick um, another way to think about it. This is more as you start to build tables, why this is important. So this is one I was just reviewing with somebody this morning. Very complex, uh, complex table. As soon as I find it. That's right here. Highly technical data, pulling in a bunch of financing data, et cetera. But this is what I wanted to show you. It's on one of these. There it is. Okay. So what we were trying to do is this is all financial data, and we're pulling in like industry, sub-industry, sector, and
Mm-hmm.
revenue type and funding. But we built this GPT, and this is what you can use these GPT for. And this is a meta prompted one to actually review all the data, including their website, and tell us, are they really healthcare? Not just
Oh,
because
yeah. Okay.
LinkedIn says they're healthcare, right? And so what's cool about this though is number one, look at the cost.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, this is all the steps that it went through to make this determination. It reviewed the website, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to get a confidence level out of it as well. And it's still only going to have cost you less than 1/100th of a cent. So this is some of the power of what you can do with, and I think he used GPT Mini for this too. And as you get in understanding Clay more, that's many. You can do crazy stuff if you start to use like some of these Argon and Neon. Like go look at their website, review their review their financial filing, see if they ever mention insider trading. Like, because
Yeah.
it's just that's so at a very, very granular level, I want you to take away like, yeah, verify, cleaning up a website name, hundreds of thousands of a penny or whatever ridiculously cheap cost. But as you get more complex, this is a pretty powerful way to use these models and their web search capabilities to um, to do some pretty crazy drill downs into are they really a qualified candidate or not? And then I'll tie that off for you with an Octave related example. And this is something we built this weekend. I think I even made a post about it yesterday or today, but and I'll introduce you as we start doing Octave work. It is the same table I showed you earlier. ESP check. You may have noticed this qualified lead.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing now is we're running all of our leads through a qualification process to determine just because we pull them from LinkedIn or Apollo or any other data source,
Mm-hmm.
does the lead match the playbook, the use case in the playbook, the product, and the persona that we're addressing before we ever verify their email? So in other
And that's
words, like
with GPT.
I had 4,000 leads I pulled for this campaign, and I'll show you why this is a problem. And you're going to run into this too. Doesn't matter if you're pulling from ZoomInfo or not, but if you look at these industries, right, a bunch of different industries, but if you notice, all I pulled for this, just so you know, I pulled senior financial managers, right?
Mhm.
But regardless of how good we are at pulling in, LinkedIn job titles are different, right? So
Of
this
course.
guy would not qualify. He's the CEO at Torch, empowering, and that's his job title, right? This guy's an AVP lat lawn business, right? Whereas you notice how these two are different than like this guy, M&A tax manager. That's you're always going to have that issue with ZoomInfo or Apollo or even LinkedIn that
Right.
people get to choose their own job titles. And so part of what we're improving on our end and Octave is helping with that is that we're running them through an additional layer of verification before we ever email it to them. And anybody like these lows right here, I exclude. So they're not a match for the product I'm trying to sell them. So before I ever verify their email or write copy or anything else, they go through all these checks. So it's just another cool function you'll be able to see as we build out the Okta playbooks where it's like we can even verify well above what typical people do and they're like go pull chief marketing officers like we did earlier to say like these are truly people that are qualified to receive this email. And that's even more relevant for you because you're doing video, right?
Right.
So, do you really you'll find as just in case you're curious, these subject lines, these emails, these are all written with Octave.
No, that's huge. I right away as soon as you were talking about it, like that's something I've been trying to do in Clay since we started was just trying to see like how can we I use it to scan people's websites and decide if they're, a fit. So
Yeah.
that's big.
So back to I know we're out of time. Let me wrap this up for you on your side. So on this table we saved here, what you're going to want to do from here is export this and test your ZoomInfo thing, right? But then you're going to want to export it, and then as soon as you put it back in the table with the emails, these are good to go, right? So you can run your ESP checks, and I would run them manually until run a few until you're comfortable. Run a million verifier BounceBan. All your verified emails are going to come here. And then in
Mm,
theory, you're just one step away if you wanted to send. But before you write any copy, but I mean, you could just as easily add these to instantly, right? Add lead to campaign, map your columns, choose your campaign, map your columns, and write your own copy, and you could send instant that quick. You will have completed the lead gen cycle. If that makes sense. Now, obviously, we're going to do Octave and other stuff, but the key point is it doesn't matter what you want to do with Octave. If you don't have verified emails to send to, then you can't. So this is where you want to start.
right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So I'm gonna get BounceBan and Million Verified, experiment with those, and then do an initial test of ZoomInfo's enrichment. I'll try that login thing you mentioned, and then when we connect next, I think it would be good to go through the Octave steps if we're there. So
Yeah, what I would do is get a verified lead list that you want to send to, and then let's start building. Do you have Octave yet? Have you met with them, signed up, or
no,
anything yet?
so I haven't signed up for Octave yet. That's kind of next after I think we were assessing like the cost clay wise of everything.
Yeah,
But now that we know what all that we can do for free and where the cost makes sense, I think we're much closer. So I
yeah,
think
and you may find too, you can just as easily pull leads through Octave into your Clay table. So
Oh,
look
really?
at that too. They have LinkedIn built into Octave as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll probably get that lit up here in the next day or so, depending on what Mike says. So
Okay. Well, let me know. I'm around.
all right. Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome. Have a great day, man.